If you love animated content that breaks down book summaries and dives into fascinating topics, we'd love your support. Creating these videos takes a lot of time and effort, and by subscribing, you help us continue bringing you this valuable content consistently. Your support means the world to us. Hit that subscribe button and join us on this exciting journey. And now, let's continue with the video. Getting things done. Chapter 1: The Key to Productivity. In our hyper-connected world, we're constantly bombarded with things to do. While you're reading this, you probably already received another text or email you need to respond to. How can we get anything done with so much going on at once? Key idea: the right framework can help you maintain focus. Most of us already have a method for trying to handle the constant onslaught of tasks. You might keep a written to-do list or set reminders on your phone. But these simple methods usually aren't enough to keep us calm and in control. We struggle to focus our attention on the right tasks and often can't keep track of the wide range of things we want or need to do. In Getting Things Done, productivity specialist David Allen introduces a unique framework that will give us these tools. Allen has been coaching people on how to tackle their to-do lists for over 30 years. Throughout his career, he's realized there's a fundamental issue in how we get things done. We often enter our day-to-day in crisis mode, trying to reconcile as many things at once as possible. This lack of strategy means we don't prioritize efficiently, and it can make us feel overwhelmed. Allen's methodology will help you navigate projects, daily to-dos, and anything else you need to get done without getting stressed. Chapter 2: The 5 Stages of Getting Things Done. Can you think of the last time you had a nagging sensation in the back of your mind that there was something you needed to do? Many of us have this feeling pretty regularly, and it can make it hard to focus. Allen calls these nagging tasks open loops. Open loops are any unfinished, incomplete items that you're not sure what to do with yet. They can include lifelong goals, like going to grad school, or items you need to get done right now, like fixing your car. Most of us try to complete our open loops as they pop up, while avoiding some we don't want to deal with. But dealing with our pending tasks like this will only lead to stress and burnout. Getting Things Done, GTD, is broken up into various stages designed to help you manage your open loops more effectively. First, you'll capture all your open loops, or get them into one list, whether they're lifelong goals or small tasks. Then you'll clarify how to best complete each open loop based on what action is needed to get it done. After, you'll organize your open loops into a set of lists that will help you act on the actions you clarified. You'll regularly reflect on this system to make sure it's helping you be as productive as possible. And lastly, you'll engage with the strategies you've learned by incorporating them into your day-to-day life. Chapter 3: Capture. Rethink your to-do list. Getting things done. The odds are your current to-do list isn't helping you track your tasks comprehensively or efficiently. You might use your to-do list for daily reminders, but then aren't sure where to manage lifelong goals or multi-step projects. You regularly muse that you hope to write a novel one day, for example, but don't know where to outline the steps necessary to accomplish it. Or on days you're in a rush, you type some to-dos on your phone as you head out the door, eventually forgetting. When you're forced to track open loops in multiple locations, it makes it much harder to move any of them forward. The first step of GTD is to capture every single one of your open loops into an in-list. Your in-list can be a document, folder, or app. For now, just write down everything you need to do and don't bother thinking about how to do it. Your only goal is to get everything into one, unified list. Now, whenever a new open loop crops up, you can store it here instead of worrying about how to get it done in the moment. Then once it's in your in-list, you can return to it when you have time, consider what needs to get done, and organize accordingly. Chapter 4: Clarify. Is it actionable or not? Getting things done. Why do we feel so overwhelmed when we look at a list of things that need to get done? And lists like this don't really tell us what we need to do. In fact, many times we start doing the thing we think we need to do, only to realize we missed a step. We sit down to set up a meeting and suddenly remember, oh right, I need to check my coworker's calendar first. The next step of GTD is to clarify what's required to complete each open loop before you start acting on it. You can begin clarifying what needs to be done about each open loop by asking, is it actionable or not? Allen defines actionable items as stuff about which something needs to be done. Typical actionable items are respond to email or prep for upcoming meeting. Non-actionable items are those that don't require a specific action at this time. Non-actionable items include trash, things you don't need, items you don't need now but will later, as well as items with useful information you need to reference. Once you've determined which items are actionable or not, you can prioritize your actionable items to start getting them done. And you can organize your non-actionable items for later. Chapter 5 Clarify. What's the next action? Getting things done. Actionable items are items something needs to be done about. But we often don't clarify what that something is until we're in the middle of doing it. This lack of direction can make things feel overwhelming. To feel less stressed out about tasks we need to get done, we need to change how we write them down. Let's consider a vague actionable item like set up doctor's appointment. How can we clarify what needs to get done in order to move this item forward? The key is to determine the physical and visible next action required. The physical and visible next action might be call Dr. Stevens and set up appointment for next Monday, for example. Some items might require more than one next action to complete, so for now just draft the immediate next action. If the next action required to complete an item will take less than 2 minutes, just do it now. That's because planning when to complete a 2-minute task will take longer than just doing it. So next time you go to set a reminder to text mom back, maybe just do it instead. You'll get it off your plate and keep your number of open loops down. Once your next actions are defined, you can add them to a next actions list, your calendar, or delegate them. Chapter 6 Organize. Next actions list. Getting things done. Once you've determined clearer next actions for your open loops, how can you make sure you actually act on them? The next step of GTD is to set up a series of lists you can use regularly and ensure that the actions you define get carried out. The first will function as a daily to-do list, but unlike your normal one, it will also help you carry out long-term goals. Some of the next actions you've determined will need to happen as soon as possible. Add these to a next actions list. But remember, always draft an open loops physical and visible next action. Don't be vague. Instead of listing something like fix kitchen sink on your next actions list, write get drain snake and unclog sink, for example. Being specific about your next action will ensure that when you review your next actions list, you'll know exactly what to do. In an effort to make your next actions list more manageable, you can also split it up into different contexts. Computer next actions or phone next actions are 2 examples. Remember, these are the things you need to get done as soon as possible, so you should review this list. Chapter 7 Organize. Who should get it done? Getting things done. Sometimes an actionable item requires a next action that doesn't need to be done by you personally. For example, you might have an actionable item like organize a list of donors for fundraisers on your in-list. Then you realize your colleague would be better equipped to handle it since she has the files from last year. Rather than clutter your own next actions list, you should track this elsewhere. After you've delegated these tasks, you can keep track of them by adding items to a waiting for list. This list will allow you to monitor these open loops without having them distract from what you, and only you, actually need to do. Monitor this list once a week to ensure these tasks are moving forward as they should. Chapter 8 Organize. Using your calendar. Getting things done. Your next actions list keeps everything you urgently need to work on. But what about things you need to do later? These actions should go on your calendar instead of your next actions list. If you see an actionable item that needs to happen on a specific date, you can add this to your calendar. But you shouldn't put a reminder on a specific day unless it really needs to be done that day. For example, if you know Tuesday afternoons are the only day you can meet with a colleague, you can add that. But don't remind yourself to work on your book, for example, unless it can only happen on a specific day. That way, when you see a reminder on your calendar, you really know it needs to get done then. And you won't keep pushing it off until suddenly you've missed a deadline. Chapter 9 Organize. Your projects. Getting things done. Some of your actionable items might require more than one action to complete. Alan calls these projects. Projects might include items like write a novel or redesign kitchen. It might feel difficult to progress on projects because they require so many steps. But there's a simple way to break your projects down into manageable chunks that ensure you'll get them done. To make even the most daunting projects manageable, you should focus only on the immediate next action required to move it forward. Let's say you're fundraising for your company. What's the immediate next action required to move this project forward? It might be having a fundraising strategy meeting with your colleagues. You should add this next action to your next actions list. Once you complete it, you can determine another immediate next action. Then, every time you check your next actions list, you can move your project forward, little by little. Chapter 10 Organize. Non-actionable items. Getting things done. Now that we've discussed how to organize your actionable items, let's consider what to do about non-actionable items. Remember, non-actionable items are things you can't or don't need to do anything about right now. Your goal is to always have an in-list as operational as possible, which means no clutter. Otherwise, you'll be less likely to use it. This means you shouldn't let open loops, even those you don't need to deal with right now, stay in your in-list interminably. Instead, you can organize them into lists to review on a weekly basis. These open loops might include future projects or things you'll need to access during a specific time. Chapter 11. Organize. Track future projects. Getting things done. Many of us have projects we'd like to do someday, but we don't have the time right now. If these are projects we'd seriously like to pursue in the future, we have to keep track of them somewhere. To keep track of potential projects or ideas, add them to a someday/maybe list. Alan calls this your parking lot for projects you don't want to tackle right now. For example, one might be an advertisement for a weekend drawing class you probably won't sign up for anytime soon, but you don't want to lose track of. Some other someday/maybe items might include: learn to code, build a boat, read the most famous American novels. This list can be a place where you draw inspiration from when you're ready for something new. In order to get the most out of your someday/maybe list, review it weekly so you can move forward with a project when you have time. As you continue to use GTD, you can add any inspirational ideas or projects to this list and refer to it in the future. Chapter 12. Organize. Preparing for a specific time period. Your non-actionable items will include tasks that you eventually need to deal with. How can you prepare for these tasks in advance to reduce some of your future workload? For non-actionable items you'll eventually need to do something about, you can use a tickler file. A tickler file is a way to tickle your memory in the future. This is where you can put things you need to access during a specific time. To set up your tickler file, Alan recommends having one file for every month. For example, if you have a conference in October, you can add the documents you'll need then to your October file in your tickler file. This doesn't need to be just for work. You can add in birthdays, holidays, and other things you plan to deal with on a particular day or month. Chapter 13. Your weekly review. Getting things done. People tend to feel best right before going on vacation. That's because they've tied up loose ends and left their work in a place they're comfortable returning to. The last step in GTD can foster a similar feeling. Reflect on each list and ensure all loose ends are tied up. Every day, you should reference your next actions list and calendar. But to make sure all your lists are helping you accomplish what you need them to, you also need to conduct a weekly review. To do this, pick a specific day, once a week, where you'll follow the GTD methodology from top to bottom. This means gathering all your open loops into an in-list and going through one by one. After, you'll review all your ongoing lists to make sure they're as complete and up-to-date as possible. Doing a weekly review will ensure that when you need to work off your lists, there won't be loose ends you're not sure what to do with. You'll be able to trust that your lists are accurately portraying what requires your immediate focus. And this will give you the confidence to handle the constant wave of new tasks without feeling stressed. Hit that subscribe button and join us on this exciting journey.